Mm, this is weird. Okay, there it is. Took a long time. Live. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hylian Gamescast, episode 166. We're going to be talking about some Zelda and Metroid rumors and what we enjoyed and did not enjoy about the latest Nintendo Direct. We have two special guests here with us, 𝗟𝗵𝗃 Gaming and N64 Josh, who you all may remember from our 2018 live stream at E3. Rick joined us, and in 2019, I think we hung out with N64 Josh for a bit. So it was great to meet him. I think 𝗙𝗵𝗲, for those who don't know, introduced us at E3. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself before we start, because I'm sure everyone's already familiar with Rick because he's been on maybe a dozen times. Yeah. But for you, Josh, how's everything going with you? Where can people find you? Tell us about yourself, because you've only been on once or twice.
Yeah, I think the last time I was here, I really upset people by talking about Pokemon.
Oh, jeez. Was that the last time when everyone's complaining about the Pokemon trees?
Oh no.
Yeah, so for those of you that are still triggered, I'm sorry, kind of. Yeah, but I'm N64 Josh. I create a lot of content. I've been doing a lot of work over on TikTok these days. So live streaming over there, doing Mario Kart. I host the Nintendo Powercast as well as a number of other shows as well. And I'm so glad when I saw the message today, Jesse. I was like, oh yeah, let's do it. We had that really fun interview at E3 where you I was your cameraman for Per Schneider.
Yeah, whenever I did the IGN interview with Per Schneider, I know he probably perhaps wanted to talk about what was going on at E3, but I was more interested in him playing the 1997 or 96 demo of Ocarina of Time. So I was asking him about that. Because it was right around the time of the 25th anniversary of that game, I believe. But yeah, thank you for that, by the way. Yeah. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I still see it on my camera roll every now and again. I'm like, oh, hey, there it is.
Yeah, that was a really great experience, and it actually gave me a great opportunity to get some nice DMs from him every now and then. We planned out a time for him to come on the podcast, but like the IGN crew were moving from like one office space to another, so he wasn't able at the time, but he had to hit him back after everything. Anyways, that's not important right now. What's important is this new rumor from, or leak, shall I say, from Josh Grubb, I want to say. I apologize if I get the name wrong. Jeff Grubb, yes, that's it. I'm so sorry. You know more than I do. That is correct. So yeah, I believe, because I did a bit of research on this. I wrote out a scripted video I was going to do, and then I just tossed away the script, and I was like, we'll just discuss it on the podcast. And I did a bit of research, because everyone wants to call themselves a leaker. Everyone wants to have their own stuff go out and claim that they knew inside information. And on my research, there is a list that I sadly figured out way too late, where someone had put together like all of the stuff that he had said was going to happen, and then put it together at the top where like everything he got correct, everything he got wrong, and there's like 5 things that he got wrong, and I swear like 2 or 3 of those things was just like, there'll be a Nintendo Direct in 3 weeks on Wednesday, and it didn't happen until that Thursday. And I'm like, well, that still like that's still a pretty good leak or information or whatever. Like, it was just one day off, and everything else he had was like 50 things on the list that was just like correct to the point where it was like the exact date, what was going to be announced, when what they said was announced, what time those games would be released, or what date those games would be. It was crazy. Anyways, he had like 50 things that was correct, 5 things that were iffy, and maybe 1 or 2 that were just wrong, like altogether, which in my opinion puts him closer to being like one of the more reputable leakers. I don't even know if he would even like himself to be called that, but he has mentioned recently things that people have been talking about is Wind Waker or Twilight Princess HD for Switch, and of course Metroid Prime 4 for Switch. And I think the Zelda games this October is what he said, and in November Metroid Prime 1, which previously he said Metroid Prime Trilogy, but then he mentioned something about it being just Metroid Prime 1, but someone else from another website, I think Game Inform, he forgot his name, I apologize, but he was a previous senior editor for Game Informer, had commented on one of his tweets about the Metroid Prime trilogy just being Metroid Prime 1. He was like, yeah, that's what I've been thinking from what I've been told and all that stuff. And they had a conversation going. And if anyone knows Game Informer, it's, or not, yeah, Game Informer, that's the GameStop magazine, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they know people, they have sources, they get exclusives every now and then, so they know what they're talking about. So I imagine if both of these people have the same sort of info coming in, then they probably know what they're talking about because they're friends with people in the industry. They knew everyone. But I want to know your guys' thoughts. So what do you think about this? Wind Waker Twilight Princess is what was thought to be this October, and then Metroid Prime 1 remaster or remake for the month after. What do you guys think about this? Because we just had a Nintendo Direct, but it was just exclusively a partner showcase or a Nintendo Direct mini. Yeah. Let's start with you, Josh, since we haven't had you on for a while.
Yeah, so I mean I'm just pulling it up here on Reddit. Looks like, okay, the thing that's the most shocking, again, according to leaks and rumors, is that it's a double pack of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Skyward Sword was a single $60 game. So I have a hard time. I feel like Nintendo's leaving money on the table doing that. Not that I wouldn't love a 2-pack similar to like the 3D All Stars, right? From but where was this game last year during the 25th anniversary of or the 30th anniversary of Zelda, right? Like that's some of my questions. Now, maybe they were like, hey, let's hold off on some of these for this very reason of Breath of the Wild getting delayed and needing to fill that void. If this is true, if our holiday first party games, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Metroid Prime, I am here for it. Like, I am 100% here for it. Jumping back into Metroid Prime without having to use motion controls, absolutely. Let's do it. And for a whole new generation to be able to play that game for the first time, that would be amazing. Now, if it's only Metroid Prime and not the trilogy, hopefully we're seeing more than just a port, but like an HD remake, right? Like that it's actually receiving the love that it needs, so that it could take advantage of the newer hardware, and I think Metroid has some momentum right now with Dread. I think Dread did very well. We know it did the best of any Metroid launch, and I think there's some momentum there. When do we hear about this is kind of one of my questions. When is Nintendo going to give us a regular Direct so that we can find out about these games? There's just so many, especially if this is October, you would think we would be hearing something very soon, yet we just got a partner Direct. So I'm very confused about Nintendo currently.
Yes. So you mentioned like where was any Zelda stuff last year during the big anniversary, and I made a video towards the end of the year last year. There's a few other things that were announced since then, but it seemed like everything that was announced from Nintendo that was Zelda related, which last year they actually did have quite a bit of stuff. There was a few first four figures things, like they had the Majora's Mask statue they were coming off of. They were doing a giveaway for the big Skyward Sword Loftwing, Zelda riding on the Loftwing statue, and then, or maybe it was Link riding on the Loftwing, and then they announced all of the champions having a statue. Nintendo had a exclusive deal with a clothing company called Black Milk, I believe, where they had like some really pricey clothing being announced. They had Skyward Sword HD, obviously, the Joy-Cons, a bunch of other stuff, a lot of
Game and Watch.
Yeah, the Game and Watch, a bunch of random stuff, and it, like, they had Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask release on the Switch, and on the Switch's online N64 online thing, and
expansion pack.
Yeah, but that I will admit that could just be its own thing. That, because like obviously if you're gonna give N64 games away for free, you're gonna include one of them. So that could have been its own thing. But like they announced so much Zelda stuff last year, like not necessarily games. Like there was Skyward Sword, they had the trailer for Breath of the Wild 2, they had the DLC for Age of Calamity, but there wasn't much in like what people were expecting, like we had with Mario, where they were like, here's the 64 game, here's a GameCube game, here's a Wii game. They didn't do that, but they did have like everything else, and it was quite a bit. I didn't mention maybe even half of it, but it was all just like accessories, clothing, stuff like that, stuff that fans would be interested in. And I was like, it seems like if they would have put all of this into a single direct and announced it all at once, maybe that would have satisfied everyone, because it was a lot. Because it's like they announced a giveaway for Skyward Sword's first four figure Loftwing statue, and it's like, why wouldn't that be something you would announce alongside of Skyward Sword when everyone's buzzing about it, interested in it? Why wouldn't you tell them about the amiibo when everyone's interested in it, instead of waiting like a month before E3 and then announcing the amiibo and what it does? Because when they announced Skyward Sword, they said it'll have amiibo functionality, and the whole time we were saying, well, it's most likely going to be a Loftwing amiibo, and it turned out that it was, because what else are you going to do with Skyward Sword? And they had like all this stuff, and it's just like, why didn't you just like put everything together in like a single combined thing and announce it all at once? Because then that would have been enough to, I don't know, at least hold people over until Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, because it was quite a bit. But I understand what everyone says, because it's like there was all these rumors at the time. There was someone who, like right after the Direct, had said that like, I know 100% Twilight Princess and Wind Waker are being worked on and going to be announced later this year. And then at E3 he's like, well, I shouldn't have said it was 100%, but you can't really know about that. Which is true, because stuff does get delayed, things do get held off until a later time. And then we have this other person, Jeff Grubb, saying the same thing, and there was a couple of other people that have said the same. But the reason that we're talking about it on here, even though we've talked about it before, is because after I did some research into this Grubb person, Rick and Josh a link to Reddit, where someone had collected like things that they had got wrong, things that got correct on Twitter. So if you guys want to check that out and look at it, at his track record, you can do that. But Rick, what are your thoughts on all this? Because everyone, I'm sure everyone, especially Daniel, if he's watching, wants something Metroid again, because it has been doing really well.
It would be great for all three games, but as of late, like I've kind of been trying to stay away from leaks, rumors, all those kind of things, because I feel like they lead to a bunch of just disappointment majority of the time. Even with track records, I feel like what ends up happening is a big game of telephone. So, for instance, with all three of these games, it could be something as simple as Nintendo is going to add these to which would be bad in my opinion. I'd rather them release all of these, like Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, and then Metroid, all as separate games, but they could just be part of a GameCube expansion to Nintendo Switch Online. we don't really know until we get info straight from Nintendo. So it could be that, yeah, the games have been worked on, but they're just working on getting GameCube games up and running as a next addition to that, which includes all three of these games. You know, but whether they're coming out or not, I could see Nintendo holding it in their back pocket like they have recently with a lot of games where they've already been completed and it was just kind of up in the air in terms of their marketing on when they're going to release these, just because they don't know when they're going to have an open window. But that's pretty packed holiday season, September with Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, and then October with Metroid, and then Pokemon in November. That's a lot of big games coming to the Switch all at once. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds a little weird to me
What-
personally.
I actually put at the end of the script for the video that I had planned to talk about all this with was that the longer that time goes on, the more I think Nintendo, if they are 100% working on this, the more they would end up saving it to release in the launch window of their next console, give it a big boost. Because if they know everyone wants these games for Switch, but they're also planning on releasing another console soon after, then why not, since they're not announced yet, why not just hold them off until like the Switch 2 or whatever they end up calling it in like a year or so from now? Because that would guarantee all these people want Metroid. There they go. All these people want Twilight Princess or Wind Waker HD on a portable plus home console, whatever. Go. That would be like an easy way for, I would imagine, to guarantee some sales. Which I honestly thought, if you guys remember Death Stranding, you guys remember that game? It was promised on like PlayStation 4, which I believe it did actually release on PlayStation 4, but it took so long after the announcement. I was like, I don't think that game's going to release on PlayStation 4. It seems like it's taking so long. I imagine they'll just release it on PlayStation 5, and then they just like release it on PlayStation 4 still, but the PlayStation 5 version, I believe. But I think it would be a situation like that, which I think they also did for Last of Us on PS3, and then like a few months later on PlayStation 4. And now there's the remaster or whatever for PlayStation, like an official PlayStation 5 version. Anyways, that's a bit off topic. But yeah, like, do you think we, like, in your all's opinion, going back to you, Josh, and then Rick, what do you think the chances are that we actually do? Because there's all these rumors and stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people just talk about it to get clicks or views or whatever. But what do you think, in all likelihood, what do you think realistically chances are of any of these, Wind Waker or Twilight Princess? Like, as you said, I honestly don't think it'll be a like a collection with both of them packed together, because they sold Link's Awakening, even though it was like completely remade from the ground up as a $60 game, and then on the Wii U, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess separately were both like fully priced games. And all of the other stuff that they brought back to remaster onto the Switch were full priced games. Like, I don't think any of them were like $40 games or whatever, where they're like marked down halfway. So what are your thoughts on this? Like, realistically, your expectation. What do you believe?
I think it's very possible, honestly. I think with the delay of Breath of the Wild, my assumption, and kind of like you guys were saying, like, that Twilight Princess and Wind Waker have probably been ready to go for quite some time, right? Like, I also wonder, this late into the Switch's life cycle, if Nintendo wasn't thinking maybe a few more third parties would be stepping up. And I mean, we are seeing stuff from Square and Atlus, you know, don't get me wrong, but they still had a few Wii U titles left to put back, or to put onto the Switch. And the delay of Breath of the Wild makes this all seem very, very, very possible to me. The 2-pack still throws me off, because I mean, I just can't imagine them. Maybe there's a 2-pack that they charge 120 for, and then you could buy each game individually. You know, maybe that's something that's happening, like similar to what you do with Pokemon, right? Where they just sell it as a 2-pack with a steel book or something. That's pretty awesome. Like, yeah, sure, sign me up for that. But I cannot imagine a world where Nintendo sells both of these games that they sold on the Wii U for $60 each for any less than that. It would be amazing, but I don't see it happening, especially with the brand power that Nintendo has right now. What's interesting about Metroid is, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, a retailer leaked a Metroid Prime SKU, right? Now, I believe it was a trilogy, which I think everybody has kind of been anticipating that would be what we would see. But again, if they're actually putting some love into the original Metroid, they could release 1 this year, 2 next year, 3 the following year, and then 4 when it's finally ready. And I know there's probably some people in the chat that are like, did he just say 4 years for Metroid Prime 4? But that game was sent back to the cutting board, right? So I don't know if we see it anytime soon. Unfortunately, I'm a huge Metroid fan. Like, I got Metroid poster on my wall right here. Like, I'm ready for it. I want it, but realistically, I just don't know that it's something we see anytime soon. Build the hype for it. Put these Prime games out without motion controls. Like I said, I'm here. I'm 100% here for it. I would gladly play through those games again. And who knows? Maybe they even bring the multiplayer back that they had on the Wii, which might be kind of fun. Hard to say, but possibly.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and it looks like it says Init, a Swedish retailer, was the one who did leak Metroid Prime Trilogy, and they said it was going to release on June 19th, it says here. And that could just be like a mistake on their part. Like, maybe they were told something. Obviously, it was a mistake, but sometimes things do actually leak from retailers early, and then they quickly backtrack and delete it, and then like a bunch of trouble ensues. But to you, Rick, what are your real expectations for any of these rumors and the games releasing?
I agree with what Josh said. I think it's likely that all 3 of these games come out at some point in time, whether that be, like I said, physical copies, digital as well, but as separate games or being included in NOS Online as their original forms, just better looking like all the rest of the games on NOS Online.
All right, so moving on to the Nintendo Direct mini third-party presentation or partner presentation, whatever they ended up calling it. The last one I think we had was in 2020, where they actually released the demo of Age of Calamity, if anyone remembers that. But what were your guys' overall thoughts on this? After you guys get done talking, I can go over a list of things that were already announced from that. And yeah, just from the beginning, what was your first impression? You all watched it.
Go ahead.
Do you want to start, Rick?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. To be clear, we're talking the Direct?
Yes, we are. And you had mentioned that like you may have wanted to mention GoldenEye in the middle of this, so you can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I didn't even know that was a thing, but I am excited. Anytime someone talks about GoldenEye, you have my attention.
Yeah, for sure. That was my biggest hope, is that we were going to see the GoldenEye remake that achievements have leaked on Xbox's website. I don't know how this happens, honestly. I don't know how how somebody accidentally hits publish on this achievement page for a GoldenEye game. We are in a crazy timeline where there is currently no James Bond, and because of that, there's a window where this game can release because of the licensing craziness that is the James Bond license. That being said, Xbox has their showcase, has no information on it, which the leak happened shortly before the Xbox showcase. So then a lot of people were thinking maybe Nintendo announces it. They have a partner showcase, no GoldenEye whatsoever. So I don't know. I don't know where this game is at. I know I want it. I've got my 64 controllers for the Switch. I am ready to play some GoldenEye again. I don't think it's going to be, if it releases, I don't think it's a game that hits Nintendo Switch Online because of licensing. I think it'll be a game that they have to, that's going to be, you know, it's going to go to retail. But I'm so confused on where this is. We know Xbox and Nintendo are playing very nice right now. We've got Banjo over on the, we've got Rare Games over on Nintendo Switch Online on the expansion pack. I'm honestly anticipating seeing like RC Pro-Am and some of the Rare NES games make their way over at some point. But we don't know. We don't know. As far as the remainder of the Direct, I feel like we're in a time with the Switch where I was expecting more from third parties. And what I mean is exclusives. And I don't necessarily it's not because I just want to see the Switch get exclusives. It's I want to see games made for the hardware that it runs smoothly and it doesn't look like mud, right? You take we've seen Starlink, they added Star Fox. We look at Mario plus Rabbids, which was fantastic. We are getting the sequel to that. Looks great. They even dropped a game today that has the Rabbids. It's like Mario Party with the Rabbids or whatever. That launched today. That's super cool. But I want to see Nintendo get a little more weird, or I don't know if weird's the best term, but see them let other people use the IP like we've seen them start to do. Right? I wanted to see something that kind of just had everybody go, no way, I can't believe this is happening. And it seems like that didn't really happen. There's a ton of cool stuff. I don't want to sound negative about the whole thing. There's a ton of cool games coming out. Sunbreak, I'm all over Monster Hunter. Love it. Can't wait to jump in. Capcom was great. Sent me a copy of it. I can't figure out how to get into the game. I think I'm missing one mission or something that I'm supposed to do. And everything I've looked up, I'm like, I have everything completed. I cannot load the game. So if anybody in chat wants to help me out, let me know. But that's a series that I absolutely love. It's great on the Switch. Can't wait to jump into it. Seeing Persona and some of those games make their way over to the Switch, fantastic. Like I love it. But there was no major titles for me that I was like super shocked by, or like I can't believe this is coming out. Titles that are super cool. Portal is great for people that haven't played Portal yet. Don't sleep on Portal. Go and pick that up and play through it. It's fantastic. Like, it's super good. So, and I think, you know, there was some interesting side, like platformers. Of course, JRPGs, like the Dragon Quest Treasure or whatever that's coming out looked pretty interesting. But again, just nothing for me that I was like, I'm really, really stoked, that I didn't already know about, right? Sunbreak, I'm stoked about. Mario plus Rabbids, I'm stoked about. But I was hoping for at least one real big hitter that really that just got a lot of buzz. You know, they got a lot of people talking and a lot of people surprised. Like it just kind of felt like more of the same to a certain extent, and again, not a lot for me personally, but I did see quite a few people were pretty excited about some of the games. A lot of farming simulators, you know, and there were a handful of people that seemed pretty excited about that. And that's fantastic. I love that there's going to be plenty of games for everybody. But yeah, if we had just had that one title, GoldenEye would have brought some buzz, you know, like, And that's really what I want to see, especially as a creator, because it just gives us a lot of fun stuff to talk about that, and the community's already buzzing about it, you know?
Yeah, really quick, we have a super chat for $2 from Taker610. Says, we're playing Breath of the Wild 2 in 4K, gentlemen. We know it now. I think that may be a reference to them holding off until next year with Breath of the Wild, and everyone was assuming they would announce their new console this year, and since they're holding it off till next year, maybe that could be a sign. Who knows? Hopefully it is. I would love a new Switch. Yeah, Rick, what are your thoughts on the Nintendo Direct partner program that just happened?
Personally, there wasn't anything in there for me, but the Direct itself, business as usual for Nintendo, decent pacing, all that kind of stuff. Lots of great variety there for everybody else, so like they did a great job on that, I feel. But again, like what Josh was saying, there wasn't a game that was like, oh my gosh, that got everybody talking. Personally, nothing really made me excited except for Sonic Frontiers, and the better showcase of what is added into that game. I don't know what happened with IGN on that front, but they showed even with just a little clip of what they showed for Sonic Frontiers, it made me more excited for the game. So other than that, Portal, awesome collection right there. You definitely need to pick it up. I agree with what Josh was saying about that. I know people were super excited for Persona, but other than that, yeah, there wasn't really much for me personally. I was expecting a general direct. We obviously didn't get that. I guess we're going to be waiting until September, if not longer. But yeah.
Yeah, everyone was on top of them doing a June direct this year, because even though they didn't have an E3 conference or whatever, like Microsoft sort of pulled out from E3 a while back and did their own thing, like in the Microsoft Theater beside the LA Convention Center. And now they have Bethesda, and it seems like more and more people were pulling out. But Nintendo, for a long time, stopped doing their presentation as part of E3, but still had their games showcasing inside of E3. So I kind of thought it was just going to be like business as usual, because they would just release their own Nintendo Direct, which they've been doing, and they'll have demos available wherever. I remember one year they had demos available that they were showing off at E3. You could go to like Best Buy or something if you lived in America and play some of the demos they had available. It was when like Triforce Heroes was announced and stuff. Yeah, Smash Bros. But yeah, they had like Dragon Quest Treasures, Portal, Harvestella, a lot of Persona. It just says a lot of Persona on this list I'm looking at, which it was a lot of Persona. Minecraft Legends, Doraemon, Story of Seasons, I don't know how to pronounce that, Live Alive, which they had the Treehouse thing for Live Alive afterwards, Disney Dreamlight Valley, Sonic Frontiers, RPG Time, Railgrade, Little Noah, Mario plus Rabbids, Return to Monkey Island, which for some reason everyone's been complaining about. I think I read something earlier that like one of the developers for it, or the director of it, ended up like removing his social media because of complaints or some weird thing like that, which like, I don't even know why people would do, because
That's
it's
horrible.
Yeah, it's like it's Return to Monkey Island. Like, how could you take? I don't know. Anyways, there's Blanc, Pac-Man, Mega Man Battle Network Legacy, which looks cool. Super Bomberman R2, which Super Bomberman R, I believe wasn't that a Switch launch game?
The launch title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to see. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, Nier Automata, and Monster Hunter Rise. Yeah, so those are all cool. GoldenEye would have definitely been the highlight if they would have announced it, but in a weird way, I am disappointed, even though I was expected to be disappointed, because my big fear was this E3 was going to come, Nintendo was going to announce all of their games they had, which was whatever, Breath of the Wild 2, whatever they have going on. But my fear was coming from the third-party side, because we've already seen for a few years now, when third parties have launched certain games, some companies will, like in the case of Witcher 3, they'll do all the hard work, or the Doom games, they'll do all the hard work, put them on the Switch, even though they're running at like 480p instead of like 1080p or 720p. They're running at like standard resolution instead of an actual HD. They still put in the work to get it running on the game for the people that want to play it. And then there's games like from Capcom where they had Resident Evil 6, I want to say, that was running off of the cloud-based streaming.
7 in Japan.
Was it? Yeah, 7. And then there's a few other games that did that. Obviously, all of the Kingdom Hearts game that got ported over were just streaming from cloud. And my thought was, well, if third parties were doing that back then, which was like a year or 2 years ago, then now when third parties are mainly focusing on like the newer generation of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, then it's going to be even harder for them to port those games to the Switch, if they could even run on the Switch at all and not be at like 1 pixel per second. They would have a really, really tough time. I don't think they would put in that effort, and we've already seen third parties on games that would probably sell really well, especially in the case of the Kingdom Hearts games, and they just put it on cloud. It made me think that half of the third-party announcements for the Nintendo Switch at this year's E3 or Big June Direct would all just be third parties being like, here's this amazing game we're working on, and it's available on this date to stream on cloud or whatever. And we didn't even get any of those. So like, I was expecting that, and I was expecting to be disappointed by that, but like, we didn't even get that. So it was like, even though I was expecting to be disappointed by a bunch of games being announced for cloud streaming, that didn't even happen.
There's one.
There was one for cloud streaming?
Yeah, A Plague's Tale.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think we're in this like really weird space again with Nintendo's home consoles, where like so very similar to the Wii U, they were shying away from putting anything on that platform at the time because it just wasn't feasible. I mean, now we have cloud stuff, but we need an update for the home console side of it to be able to continue to get third-party support as heavily as it was at the beginning, because there wasn't as much of a gap. Now there's quite a big gap in terms of what they're working with to develop on for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox. So, I mean, watching the clips of people playing Kingdom Hearts streaming is just, it's really bad.
Yeah.
How choppy it is.
I understand, like, if you have a perfect internet connection, maybe you're getting like better quality than you would be getting on the Switch anyways. But for most people, you have that sort of delay or whatever. And I used to play some games, I don't know if you guys remember this, but you could like stream the PlayStation 4 to your PlayStation Vita and kind of play your PS4 game streamed over to your Vita. And I would play Destiny and stuff like that on the Vita, and I was kind of used to that little teeny bit of lag that I got, but it was still really fun. So I imagine this would be fun if you do have that connection. But I know most people with the Switch, like the whole point of it's being portable, playing it out on the road, you're not going to have like the best internet access while you're like in the backseat of a car or something, or waiting at some appointment or wherever. So that does suck, but it makes me...
I anticipated more cloud games, honestly,
Yeah.
because of the dock with the Ethernet on the OLED. I've been anticipating that we see more cloud gaming, right? But we haven't. I'm so curious the reason that they put the Ethernet cable on there, yet there hasn't really been any proof to why, at this point.
Yeah, I agree that, like I said, that was the thing that I was like worried about, that all the third-party games were just going to be cloud streaming, but we didn't even get that. So I wonder if like maybe the third parties on a lot of those games are just holding off onto, maybe they've already started work on their next console or whatever it is going on, because usually consoles typically release around the same time, and we've seen Xbox and PlayStation, and now it's been going on a year and a half maybe, or 2 years for Nintendo's, and they've been answering a lot of questions lately, like, yeah, we're working on something new, but they can't really say much. It's that whole jargon. So it makes me wonder if we may be getting that sometime soon, but that's a different topic for a different time. Anyways, to start off our Zelda mailbag here for some questions. If anyone in the live chat has any questions, feel free to ask it. Just post it in the live chat there. We'll answer it. But to start us off, we have a question here in a previous mailbag that someone had commented on from 𝗍𝗏 Roast. I hope I pronounced that right. It says, do you think there will be any way to play as Zelda in the sequel? Presumably Breath of the Wild 2. And do you think there'll be a game with her as the main character and not Link? What are you guys' thoughts on this? Starting with you, Rick, this time.
I think it, with how much people wanted it this last time, I think they might end up doing it. I mean, it's still way too early to tell, but with the trailers and stuff, Link and Zelda getting separated, maybe they play into that, and you have sections that you play as Link or Zelda. They could do it very similar to 𝗵𝗲 𝗵𝗲, where they have, maybe that's who gets, maybe that's what happens to Zelda. She gets sucked into the green hand. I know it sounds outlandish and unlikely, but maybe that's how she's traveling with Link, and you get to interact with both the characters at the same time, something like that. As for a standalone game, if they test it out this time and it works and people like it enough, possibly. I know they even played around with the idea for Skyward Sword, where the section at the end where they show Zelda going to all the springs, they actually toyed with the idea for it. So it wouldn't be the first time Nintendo's done something like this. So yeah.
Right. And Josh?
I'd be all over the Legend of Link, and then you play as Zelda the whole time.
That would be sweet.
I'd be all about it, right? And I mean, they've got the Super Princess Peach, so like, but I think there's enough people that have